Hey, it's me, James. Happy Sunday to you all. I am filming this week's Oracle Outlook video reading on Sunday, July the 27th, 2025. We're going to be taking a look at the week ahead starting on Monday, July the 28th, 2025. If this is your first time here, I'd like to say welcome. And if you're a returning viewer and subscriber, I'd like to say welcome back. Thank you for circling back and for supporting the work that goes into the channel. So as you can see, there is a single deck on the table this week. I'm going to be working with the Mitchell Lenormand Oracle. And the reason for the deck choice is that I didn't have a viewer request as I've had the last few weeks now. But I have been working with this deck in my client consultations this week, and so I thought it would be ideal to use for this week's video reading. So that is the reason for the deck choice. And so we're going to be doing the Over the Hump spread. It's the spread I did a couple of weeks back. So it consists of 8 cards. So we're going to be pulling a card, one card for every day of the week plus a theme card. So without further ado, I'm going to get to the shuffling. Alright, the cards have been shuffled, cut, and dealt. And so like I said, we're going to be using one card for every day of the week. So we're going to be doing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It's going to go up this way. And then for the weekend, we have Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's going to go back down this way. And this is the theme card. So now, because we are using Lenormand, I just had this thought as I was laying the cards out, is that Lenormand is best read in pairs if you are fluent in Lenormand, right? So then what we can do is we can pair cards depending on what it is that they want to show. So these two cards could be a pair, these two, so forth and so on. Or we could mirror the cards, right? So these two cards here and here, here and here, here and here, and then these two cards vertically. So I'll just see where it takes me. I'll just be led and guided by my intuition to see how I want to pair those up. Okay. So let's start by taking a look at the card that represents the theme. So at the bottom here we have Ring. So Ring is a card that can represent commitment, right? So for the week ahead, we are being asked to take a look at our commitments this week, right? And this card is also about, honoring commitments, right? So it may be a matter of not only taking a look at our commitments, but looking at the ways that we are going to honor them. And maybe if we are able to honor certain commitments, right? So is that. This card is also about agreements, kind of a similar thing with commitments. What are we agreeing to, and what kind of agreements are, what kind of people are we making agreements with? So there is that. Now, the ring is a circular symbol, so for me can represent cycles and patterns. So sometimes this card can turn up to suggest, and maybe in the area of commitments, like committed relationships, there are cycles and patterns that we are being asked to observe. And maybe the bigger question is, if they're getting our attention, are we willing to break some of those cycles and some of those patterns? Yeah, because the ring can sometimes represent something that's recurring, right? So again, this card can be about commitments, it can be about promises, unions, mergers, agreements, contracts, because here in the image I have an engagement ring, so it can hint at marriage, and so marriage is a legally binding contractual agreement, yeah? So there are those things with the ring. So again, that's about taking a look at our commitments this week. So now, this card represents Monday, so what do we have for Monday? Here we have the Whip card. So Whip can be talking about trying to work things out and sort things out. If I go with the theme card being about agreements and commitments, yeah, so there may be something about sorting things out regarding certain commitments and agreements, trying to work things out regarding certain agreements and commitments, right? And I talked about, the ring being a symbol that can represent something that's recurring. Well, the whip can represent something that is repetitive in nature, yeah? So, and now in terms of the theme for Monday, going into the week ahead, so there may be the potential for conflict or discord. Those are some of the things I think about with the whip. This card can represent arguments, debates, heated words being exchanged. In some cases, depending on the escalation, this could represent, how is it that they say it out in the world? People throwing hands, yeah? So there's always that potential with whip. I kind of tone it down to represent more like arguments and heated words being exchanged, that kind of thing. Now, it could also be, too, if I put the card down, so those are some of the things we want to maybe think about regarding commitments. The commitments that maybe make us heated, because this card can be about being angry and dealing with anger. It could also be, in certain commitments, where do we get angry? Where do we feel the need to debate things? Maybe things escalate into arguments, that kind of thing. This card is about discipline. So maybe in certain commitments or committed situations, maybe taking a look at the things that make us potentially fly off the handle, right? Again, this is about discipline, so maybe being more disciplined with our anger, right? Now, it could also be, when it comes to commitments, maybe needing some discipline, right? Because this card can be about discipline, training, so it could be a matter of either training or being retrained, right? When it comes to honoring commitments, keeping our promises, things like that. So that's what I'm seeing with the whip card. And so now if we read this as a pair, so now I would say this is the theme, and I would use this card to modify it. So again, this would be, maybe discipline regarding a commitment, or there's going to be heated words being exchanged, or some anger regarding a commitment, right? So that's what I want to say about whip. Again, this is about discipline. I think that's the word. Going into the week, when it comes to our commitments, how disciplined are we in terms of honoring our commitments and keeping our promises? Okay? Now, for Tuesday, we have the bouquet card. So bouquet is a card that can talk about an invitation, a gift, something being offered, something being presented, things like that. Now, it could also be about surprises. Now, because there are flowers in the picture, sometimes I call the bouquet the making arrangements card. So maybe if we are, maybe trying to work something out, sort something out on Monday, Tuesday we going into that day with the idea of I need to make a certain kind of arrangements, and it may be regarding that. Now, it could also be making arrangements regarding a commitment. Right? Now, if we're talking about gifts, this is a literal gift card. Then this could be the gift of flowers and maybe jewelry, right? Ring is a card that can represent jewelry. And here's what I'm seeing. And maybe in some cases, there's an argument or some sort of discord, and then somebody wants to make up with the gift of flowers. Yeah? So that's what I'm seeing with bouquet. Again, bouquet can represent something that's surprising, and it could be a pleasant surprise, but something that's surprising can represent an offer, a presentation, something being presented to one party or another. But it could also be about needing to make some kind of arrangements. That's what I want to say with bouquet. For Wednesday, we have the snake card. Okay, so the snake is a challenging card like whip, and so this card can represent a long and winding process, but its chief meaning for me can be complications and complexities, right? And then the other thing that I noticed right off the bat is that the inset, the playing card insert, is the Queen of Clubs, and we had the Queen of Spades on bouquet. So there may be something with two women this week, because we have two queens on the table, right? And we also have a jack. So we have three face cards. So there may be something involving people this week. Now for me, the Jack of Clubs, if I read the playing card, the Jack of Clubs can represent news and messages, because all jacks for me can be messengers. And then the suit of clubs can represent something for the week or regarding the week. Yeah, regarding the week, regarding the public at large, right? Because the suit of clubs can be a card that can represent society and the public, right? So there may be something regarding news or messages that may deal with the public, and it could be something that kind of whips people up, no pun intended. That would be, that gets people really mad, that kind of thing. Like there's debates about it, people being really angry, that kind of thing, right? But there may be something about two women in particular. And here, so the Queen of Clubs attached to the snake can represent some kind of scandal. So there may be a woman who is playing a prominent role or part in some scandal, and we may learn more about it this week, but in particular on Wednesday, right? And then the setup here is that there's going to be some sort of surprise, maybe possibly on Tuesday, and then it moves into Wednesday with the scandal and the players. So there's something with two women in particular. But yeah, but the snake card can represent, I tend to look at this card as, you know, somebody with a forked tongue. That's just based on my background and references to snakes, right? So this card can be, you know, again, somebody with a forked tongue. Usually represents somebody who's complicated or causing some kind of complication, a situation that is complicated, right? You know that expression, like it's complicated, something like that. Or that's a long and winding process with lots of twists and turns, because the snake is coiled on the card. And then the last thing about snake is that there's something having to do with consequences. So there may be somebody who's dealing with consequences, the consequences of their actions. The suit of clubs is a card for me, or a suit for me, that can represent intention and actions. And so there may be something involving that. Now, if I mirror the cards, and mirroring is a process where you kind of take two cards from either, you know, opposite ends of a line and take a look at them. So what I'm doing here is I'm looking at whip and snake, and so there's some sort of debate or trying to work something out, sort something out, and it may involve a woman, right? You know, maybe some form of a scandal, and a woman is a player in that scandal. But there may be something about working something out. It's repetitive. There may be some anger at a woman. If I bring the bouquet in it, there may be some anger at a woman. But there may be some debate around a scandal, some argument regarding a scandal. Now the other thing I will just say is that whip is a sex card in Lenormand, and so this card can represent casual sex, recreational sex, that kind of thing. And so there may be a sexual component that's wrapped up in this scandal, and I'm sure a lot of you can read between the lines of what I'm alluding to, right? But I'm just going to put it like that, and those of you who know, you know, right? So I'm seeing that there may be some more surprises around this particular scandal, right? And then come back to ring. With that in mind, there may be something regarding a promise being made. Yeah. There's a promise that potentially could cause a lot of anger, a lot of debate. But if this is what I'm thinking it is, then this is about trying to work that out, sort that out. And for some people, because remember now, this is going to be news for the public, society at large, and it may be, it may induce some anger, and for some people it may come as a surprise. But maybe for a lot of us, it won't be a surprise, right? But that's what I'm seeing with these. So this is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So now if this is about a promise, an agreement, then the snake card would suggest that it's complicated. It's going to be a long and winding process. There may be some twists and turns to it, that kind of thing. But there's this idea about consequences. Like, what are the consequences for people's actions? Especially those who are finding themselves wrapped up or embroiled in scandal. And the only other thing I will say, and I don't know where to put this, but I'm going to say it. So I'm looking at the Queen of Spades on the bouquet card, and I'm getting a sense that there may be something having to do with a woman. And when bouquet is describing the woman in this particular case, it can represent somebody who is beautiful or attractive. So I was thinking about that in those along those lines, and I was thinking something about a model in particular, right? Because this card could be a woman who's into cosmetics, into beauty industry, aesthetics, things like that. Could even be somebody who's like an interior designer, somebody who beautifies spaces, that kind of thing. But I was thinking that there's something about a model in particular, and I don't know, I don't have anything more to say about that, but I keep saying that there may be something involving a model this week. And I'm saying that with the bouquet card. Okay. So I'm going to move on to the card that represents Thursday at the peak. And here we have the gentleman card. So at the top of the scenario, at the top of the situation is a man, right? And so now he has these cards behind him because he's not looking in the direction of these cards. He's looking in the direction of these cards. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to lower him. I had him up here, but I think for the sake of the visual, I'm going to lower him here, right? So here we have, right at the center of things, we have a man. Right? And this is considered inauspicious placement. If this was a straight line, these cards behind him would be inauspicious. So this would be things that he is going to be dealing with in terms of challenging situations. So dealing with the anger, right? The debates, the arguments, right? Dealing with women, right? Dealing with a complicated situation, and maybe because this card is behind him, consequences. Remember I said this was about consequences, yeah? And dealing with maybe past, consequences. Or it's saying like whatever actions he's considering taking, there are going to be consequences for those. But it's going to involve women. Right, and then he's on top of ring, right? So this is what is under his control, what he's trying to influence. So he's trying to influence a commitment, an agreement. It's almost like he's trying to stay on top of this, right? Now, if I go like this, going with the visual, he's trying to stay above the fray. Yeah? Trying to keep some level of distance out of that situation, right? Oh, the other thing too is that sometimes the cards can describe the man. So the gentleman, I'm going to hold this card up. So the gentleman is what we call in Lenormand a significator card, and it really has no other meaning than it is that it describes a man, right? So this could be a man who's having his cards read, right? Or a man who's playing a significant role or part in the situation, right? So other cards would describe him. So the first thing that I'm thinking here is also too with ring, is that this can represent a married man, right? A married man who maybe is trying to distance himself from some sort of scandal, and the scandal involves another woman. Right? But there may be also a history of women, yeah? Because there's two queens here. And then, of course, this is sex with women, right? This card might describe beautiful women, attractive women. I said models in particular, right? So there may be a model in this person's background. And like I said, I'm sure people know what I'm talking about, and just being willing to read between the lines. Yeah. And like I said before, if you know, you know, right? So it puts this man right at the top of things. So it'd be interesting to see if a man is going to be making some kind of news Thursday this week. But this is going to be a significant week, right? Because he's going to be front and center, so to speak. All right, so now we're going to start looking at the weekend. So it's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So what's ahead? Here we have Bear. Okay, so I'm going to lower this card again. So here we have Bear. And so Bear is a card that can represent authority. It can represent leadership, power. So here we have, put this card in front of the man, describing the man again. So not only is he married, but he may be in a position of authority. He may have some sort of power, control. Now, if this is about an agreement, right, trying to strike an agreement, then this card would be like maybe there's going to be some sort of force applied to that, because the bear can represent force. But it can also be somebody who's coming across as overbearing, yeah? So this is somebody who's maybe describing the person physically. The bear would suggest that maybe he's a little heavy, meaning he has a little bit of weight to him, right? But also, again, being in the position of authority. And also a man who is resourceful or has a lot of resources, because this card could represent resources, right? Because bear is also one of the cards in the deck that can represent money. So it represents money and power, but also resources, being resourceful. But on the negative side, somebody who's overbearing. But I could see like he's looking towards the bear. So this is somebody who's trying to force the situation, right? Trying to force something to happen. Again, that might be with the agreement. Now, I will say, on a lighter note, and maybe kind of just offer a different perspective, I'm seeing with whip and ring, this would be, discipline regarding a commitment. And for some people, it may be about food and weight. So there may be some people who are taking a look at their diets, taking a look at their weight and weight management. Right, maybe making some kind of arrangements to make some changes in that regard. So that's what I would see with bear. Bear is a card, again, about leadership, authority, resources, power, control, and force. Okay, so that was Friday. So now starting for the weekend, we have dog. Okay, so now here we have dog, and dog is a card that can represent friendship, partnerships, companionship, but it can also represent loyalty, trust. So there's things that are having to do with people being loyal. I'm thinking about loyalty tests in regard to the situation that I'm reading between the lines about. So there's things about loyalty tests, fidelity. I'm seeing the fidelity card from the gypsy card system with this card, because if you're familiar with that system, the fidelity card has a dog who's lying at the gravesite of his owner, right? And so I call that card the ride or die card, right? So there may be people whose loyalty is being tested in the sense of like, are you going to be my ride or die kind of thing, right? Now, if I put this card down, I'm being told, or being directed, I should say, on an intuitive level. Here we go, let's put that there. So dog and whip. This is about training and obedience, yeah? So people are going to be forced somehow, some way, through different means and resources to be, I want to say obedient, but the word that I'm actually is coming to my mind is compliant. Yeah, but dog can be about, trustworthiness, loyalty. It's about help, support, and also advice. So it could be maybe this person, this man, is going to be seeking through different means and resources, maybe an expert getting some advice. But the question is, will the person take the advice, right? So that's what I'm seeing with dog. So dog, if we take this out of the realm where I'm going, I've been going with the cards so far. Outside of that, this could just be, commitments, agreements made with friends, or a commitment regarding a friendship. Maybe a recurring commitment with a friend or a partner. Or even, regarding a commitment, being loyal, meaning like honor your commitments, keep your promises, things like that, being loyal, being trustworthy when it comes to commitments and your promises. Okay, so that was Saturday. So Sunday, wrapping up, we have, coffin. So this is interesting because it's the last card for the week ahead, and it represents the end of the week, right? So that's the literal translation, right, first out of the gate, because the coffin card can represent endings, right, something being completed. So if I put this card down and we go here, that whip, starting the reading off, was about discipline, trying to work something out, sort something out. Then coffin at the other side here could represent, bringing that to a state of completion, state of closure, that kind of thing. Now for some people, this could also be, if this is about a commitment, an agreement, this would be a final agreement. This card can be about finality. So an agreement to end something, an agreement to complete something. Whew. Okay, this is what I just got, and I don't know where this is going, but I'm just going to say it. So here if we have scandal here, then this could be burying something, because coffin can represent burial. So there may be certain players here, dog, loyalists, who are looking to bury something, right, in an effort to help and support gentlemen. Right, but again, if I take it out of where I'm going, then again, this could just be about, bringing something in your life to a state of conclusion, completion, and an ending. And so on that note, I'm going to end this week's, no pun intended, I'm going to end this week's Oracle Outlook video reading there. I'm James Himm Mitchell, and if you made it to this point in the video with me, I want to thank you for giving me the gift of your time. I never take that lightly, and I look forward to seeing how this week in particular is going to unfold, because the cards were quite intriguing, I will say. And I will be holding space for you all right here, and we will be right here in this space with another deck of cards doing another reading for next week's Oracle Outlook. So until then, I hope you have a great night, I hope you have a great week, and take care.